paper that has, that has been developed. And dear friends, want to talk of the papyrus for your information. At first, we are collecting the leaves of the papyrus plant, and with the support by applying the gums, by applying the attach means the gums, what they are doing, they were just attaching the paper and they were making it the roll in size, roll, and its length was near about 20 to 40 feet, the length of the paper. And whenever we talk the wide of the paper, it is 5 to 10 inch. And for your information, dear friends, whenever we talk about the modern paper, Adhanik Samajara paper is derived from the word papyrus. And most important thing is here how they were writing. They were writing with the application of the ink. What was the ink? The ink they prepared it. It was collected from the kitchen. It was collected from the light. ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ କଳା. Kali means କଳା. How they were collecting that ink from the kitchen, from the light, from the fire, and they were adding water and a kind of a gum. Ultimately, the Kali, the ink was made, ink was prepared, the knowledge they had. Now, we may talk about paper is made, ink is made, then what is the means through which they can write? For your information, they were collecting a kind of grass on the bank of the river Nile. Nile nadi kuluru se gote prakara kon pautile. For your information, reed se ଏକ ପ୍ରକାର ସର ବା ସର ତୃଣ କହିପାରିବା ଆମେ ରିଡ୍ ପେନ୍ ବୋଲି ଆମେ କହୁ ଏକ ପ୍ରକାର ଘାସକୁ କଲେକ୍ଟ କରୁଥିଲେ. And for your information, with support of that plant, they were already prepared the ink, and from time to time they were putting the reed pen, and that reed pen is made of the we may talk about the grass. And for the preservation of the ink, they were making the Sahid water ink pot. It was all about the development of the paper, ink. Then we may talk about ink pot. Then we may talk about the pen. Now coming to, thank you. Now coming to the material literature, for your information, dear friends, what kind of the literature they produce? ସେମାନେ କି ପ୍ରକାର ସାହିତ୍ୟକୁ produce କରୁଥିଲେ? They produce the varieties of the literature. Dear friends, they produce the varieties of literature, and generally the literature deals with science, deals with the textile industry, deals with the making of the metals, deals with the joining. You may talk about the military activities. You may talk about the riverine system. You may talk about the different, the romantic kahanis, stories, tales. And their friends, among the literature, ସେ ଯୋଉ ଲିଟରେଚର ଛାପିଥିଲେ ସବୁଠୁ ଭଲ ଲିଟରେଚର ଥିଲା ଟୁ ବ୍ରଦର୍ସ ଟେଲ୍, ଦ ଟେଲ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଟୁ ବ୍ରଦର୍ସ, ଦି ଭାଇଙ୍କ କାହାଣୀ, ଦ ଟେଲ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଦି ଟୁ ବ୍ରଦର୍ସ. ଦେନ୍ ଦ ଟେଲ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଏ ଫାର୍ମର, ଜଣେ କୃଷକର କାହାଣୀ. ନେକ୍ସଟ ଦ ଟେଲ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଦି ସିନିହୁର, ଜଣେ ଜାହାଜର ନାବିକର କାହାଣୀ. And Anup and BTU, Anupandabhitu, tale of the Anupandabhitu. So these were the different textbooks developed by the Egyptians. I am coming to science. The most important thing is here the preparation of the calendar. It was not easy to say. People are saying those who are not having, and the people say that the Sumerians, the Egyptians, for your information, they were they proved their expertise in the field of the astrologer, in the field of the mathematics. That means it leads to the law. Then you may talk about the mathematics, okay, just as, and if people see that, I'm talking about, they generally predicted when to talk about the calendar they prepared for your information, dear friends. They prepared it just like the Sumerians that to look the movement of the stars, moons, the sun, the planets. ଏମାନଙ୍କର ମୁଭମେଣ୍ଟକୁ ଗତି କରି to look after. They predicted the future. Future means the activities relating to the flood, relating to the time of the sowing the seeds, everything should be taken into the account, dear friends. And for your information, the whole year they divided into 365, 12 month, every month is a 30 day. And for your information, whenever we talk about the day was divided into 24 hours, the 12 hours for you people, 12 hours for us. That must keep in mind, friends. And similarly, they divided that whole day into 24 years, 24 years, and 12 years each. We may talk about it. And for your information, dear friends, going to talk about Ganita of geometry, and the mathematics. So, dear friends, the Sumerians had excelled in the field of mathematics and geology. Now, question comes, dear friends. The ସେମାନେ ଯାହାର ମାପ ପାଇଁ for the measurement of the land, the Egyptians also used the triangle, also used the square, also used the rectangular. So these are the major sides we want to talk about. For your information, the development of the Egyptian civilization is concerned. And most important thing is here they had the knowledge how to mitigate the people who are suffering from the blood and the blood for your information, blood and donation. Now I'm going to talk about Ganita and Geometry, mathematics and the geometry. But dear friends, in the field of geometry and mathematics, both, the Egyptians were far ahead because they had the knowledge about the triangle, about the knowledge the square, about the knowledge about the um, no triangle, then square, then rectangular. The rectangular poses also deals with the concept to say to someone like you might talk with your friends. The jobs assignment. তাহলে এটি আমি দেখুছি when to talk with the mathematics that the knowledge about the triangle I told, the rectangular I told, square. Besides that the knowledge about the mathematics, how to talk about it. We must talk about it because of just open the pages of the pyramid. It belongs to the Kesari dynasty. Sorry, it belongs to the Africa. And in this regard, dear friends, they had constructed the gigantic statue of springs. And it requires what? When to talk about the grandiose one, the great structure like the pyramid, it required the nil mistake of its management, of its preparation, of its role. Okay. And sometimes the historians, scholars have been pointed out that Narsingapur College is going to conduct the seminars of I mean, ଏବଂ ତାହା ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଗଣିତ ଜ୍ୟାମିତିର ପରିଚୟ ପ୍ରଦାନ କରିଥାଏ. The Egyptians were advanced, quite advanced in the field of mathematics and the geometry. How to know it? We know it from the uh, ULP କଣ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ୟୁନିଭର୍ସିଟି ପ୍ରିମିୟର ଲିଗ୍. And ବିଶ୍ୱ ଇତିହାସକୁ ସୁମେରମାନଙ୍କର ଅବଦାନ, the legacies of the Egyptians cannot be relegated, it cannot be rejected. That we must always keep in mind, dear friends. Now coming to contribution to the field of science and the basis began, we are talking about the medical science. So just to talk about it, dear friends, the Egyptians, they had knowledge about the different diseases, its cause and effect. And the major one was, for example, Edwin Smith, a पुस्तक लिखिଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନଙ୍କ ମତରେ what they have been pointed out that according to them it is ଶାସ୍ତ୍ରାନୁମୋଦିତ. Therefore we people say the Veda like this, but how many of us know Veda? ଆମେ ତ କେତେ ଜଣ ଆମେ ବେଦ ଜାଣିଛେ ବା ବେଦକୁ ପଢିଛେ? Anybody? Therefore I'm talking about in the field of the science, the Egyptians had the knowledge about the cause of the disease, how to cure the disease, and what the medicine should be used, prepared, applied. That must keep in mind. By whom? By the people of the Egypt. Even if they have the knowledge about the belek, they have the knowledge about the headache, they have the knowledge about the so we are talking about it. And most important thing is here, dear friends, they could preserve the dead body for a long period of time. How it is possible? It was possible because of the application of the chemicals that was originally domesticated. But now, if people may talk about it today in 2024, we people are less the respect achievements towards the medicinal books to purchase it. They could able to preserve the dead body for a long period of time because they were using a kind of the liquid, a kind of oil. We call it the castor oil. And for your information, if the missionaries and the doctor could have been able to talk to, and in context to dear friends, I'm talking about the doctors, they had the knowledge about the different medicinal plant, because at that time they are in allopathy, at that time no others. The people knew one that may talk about the Ayurvedic in the villages even today. And most important thing here, to watch the verbosity, to watch the main aspects of temple. People see that the historians have been pointed out that the Missourians were the fathers of the Egyptian civilization. Particularly, they were the father of the medical science in the world. Now, coming to Class-3 Bhaskara, when to talk about the Egyptian civilization, it was not backward. It was not backward. The reason is what? Now, for your information, the mummy, we today are calling the mummy was deposited. Even today, in the British Parliament, there is the preservation of the mummy. So the fact is, what kind of the metals, what kind of the organs they were examining, they were applying it. And ultimately, for your information, dear friends, Etem देखुचे in the field of color, art, architecture, so pyramid is one of the greatest or the noblest contribution to the achievements of the Egyptians in the field of the art, architecture, and the sculpture. So, dear friends, when we're talking about the Great Pyramid, that is at Giza, and where in front of the pyramid there is the dead body kitchen. So, you may talk about uh, the dead body, the mummy, even today stored in the British Museum for the ready reference. And whenever we talk about the pharaohs, they were developed large number of what we may talk about the architectural features. And whenever we may talk about the Pharaoh Joseph was the ruler of the Egypt. Uh, he had developed the Saqqara. Had named the pyramid. Just wait. Just wait. So people see that the Pharaoh Joseph, for your information, the Pharaoh Joseph had created the oldest pyramid, oldest. But the grand oldest new three times oldest pyramids uh, they introduced, they were produced it for your information. And most important thing, the Giza, at Giza, that is the grand Sphinx, that was the grand pyramid. That you must keep in mind, right? And when to talk about its construction, it took well 2,03,000 pieces of the stone. We look here, see somebody. 34,000, 2,34,000 pieces of the stone used. Then we must compare to them. And in this recapitulations, automatically the each and every stone and its cost was near about 2.5 ton. ଏସବୁଥିରେ ହିସାବ ମିଶେଇଦେଲେ when to talk about the Egyptians particularly, they believe that the world fears the time and the time fears the pyramid. ଏ ସାରା ବିଶ୍ୱ ସମଗ୍ରରେ କିନ୍ତୁ ସମୟ pyramid କୁ ଡରେ. The world fears the time and the time fears the pyramid. It believes that it was the responsibility, social responsibility, what we have gone through few days here back. So now coming to dear friends, the Great Pyramid that was at Khufu at Giza, made by the Pharaoh Khufu. And for your information, 2,30,000 stone pieces were used, and very simple to say, it was made in a grand and massive ବର୍ଗମିଟର square kilometer 4.8 square ପ୍ରାୟ ଅଢ଼େଇ ଓଜନ ହେବ. So that just imagine friends what kind of the architectural marvels they have been produced it. And it was taking the 20 years 20 ବର୍ଷ ଲାଗିଥିଲା. And now coming to the temple, I want to talk about it, dear friends, the Mysorean temple, particularly the temple of the Egypt. For your information, it was the glaring example, the quiet example of 2701 that we must keep in mind. And now coming to dear friends, the temple, Karnak temple is the example. It is so vast, okay, and it was located at the Thebes, that you must keep in mind, dear friend. And its height was 79 feet in a height. Just imagine, friends, whenever we might talk about the Jagannath temple, the temple. And in the meantime, if people see that Karnak temple was located at the Thebes, it was dedicated to Amun-Ra. Amun-Ra was the sun god, the main god of the Egyptians. And in that context, dear friends, whenever we talk about, right now the temple is not here. So, for your information, dear friends, at the Luxor there was another temple. It also located at the Abu symbol. So from the architecture point of view, particularly the people of the ancient world, we are quite progressed. ପୁରା ବିକଶିତ ସେମାନେ କରିଥିଲେ whenever to see their responsibilities. So now coming to dear friends, the Bhaskarya, କଳା ସ୍ଥାପତ୍ୟ ଏବଂ ଭାସ୍କର୍ଯ୍ୟ. That means କଳା ସ୍ଥାପତ୍ୟ, culture. Then we may talk about begging it. They are begging it. But for your information, dear friends, when we are talking about the Bhaskarya, we call the sculptures. Bhaskarya means the sculptures. That must be mind. So the missionaries, they were excelled in the form of the cooking because they knew the purpose of the material. And if people might have been put the questions before me, that whenever I have gone through the Pali literature, there nothing is mentioned about the fairy tales. If fairy tales କଥା ଯଦି ଆମେ କହୁଛେ for your information, the Sphinx, as per the Bhaskar is concerned, sculpture is concerned, in front of the Great Pyramid at the Giza, the Sumerians also constructed another image, the complete image, and the ପୃଥିବୀ ବୃହତ୍ତମ ମୂର୍ତ୍ତି ହେଉଛି Sphinx. Sphinx is the largest toilet, sorry, matter the largest image, and for your information, its length was 70 foot. And besides, we may talk about ପୃଥିବୀର ବିଭିନ୍ନ କୋଣ ଅନୁକୋଣରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମେ if we may talk about the HOD ma'am, our HOD ma'am, Professor Jayantara ma'am, and his article is his books, it provides a lot of difference. And now, when to talk about the particularly the Bhaskarya Sphinx, the body of the Sphinx was the man, and the head is of the man, and the body is the lion. And now, if I talk about the friends, dharma, what is the legacy of the Egyptians? As per the part of the dharma, so for your information, dear friends, dharma, bharati iti cha dharma, ମୁଁ ତାକୁ ବିଶ୍ୱାସ କରେ. ତ ଏଇ ଦୃଷ୍ଟିକୋଣ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛେ ଯେ ଧର୍ମ ଜାଣନ୍ତି ଇତି ଚ ଧର୍ମ, ଏଇଠି ସେ ଆମକୁ ଲେଖୁଛି somehow for the first time the entrances, like in my talk with your friends, the mummy I told, they with the castor oil, then I told after the dead body they were putting it into a box, and the box is known as sarcophagus. We may talk with dear friends sarcophagus. And most important thing is here, so in that instrument there was making the different souls. And for your information, dear friends, ଫାରୋଙ୍କ ପତ୍ନୀ ଭୃତ୍ୟ ଭାବରେ ଫାରୋଙ୍କ ପତ୍ନୀ ଭୃତ୍ୟ କୃତଦାସ ଆଦିଙ୍କୁ ହତ୍ୟା କରି ଖାଦ୍ୟ ପାନୀୟ ଓ ବସ୍ତ୍ର ଅଳଙ୍କାର ସବୁ ପିରାମିଡ ଭିତରେ ଥିବା କୋଠରୀ ମଧ୍ୟରେ ରଖାଇଥିଲା. ଏଇଟା ଆମେ ଦୁଇଟା କଥା ଦେଖୁଛୁ, dear friends. Whenever we talk of the Egyptian civilization, the kings, the monarchs, the rulers, they had given the empty stomach. They have given the empty stomach. And it is the fact, dear friends. I told the Bhaskarya, it is happened in the palaces, it is happened in the temple, it is happened in the pyramid also. And most important thing is here, during the time of Ramses II. Ramses II ଯେତେବେଳେ Egypt civilization କଣ କଲେ? For your information, at the Luxor, they developed the grand image. At Luxor, they developed the grand image. It is called the Sphinx. Its face is just like the elephant, and the body was like the man or the man. Separately, at the Abu symbol, for your information, when by talking about the Abu symbol, is the another place where also we notice Pharaoh second Ramses and his wife and his presiding deity. So suppose whenever we talk about the presiding deity, and प्रत्येक मूर्तिर ओजन प्राय 1000 टन. Whenever we talk about the images, each image is 1000 ton. And very simple to talk, dear friends, beside the pyramids, what happened? Beside the pyramids, the people were not living together. Besides the pyramid, the Mandira Utikara, Khotitha Samvasukana, it has the whenever we may talk about the river bank, unless and until it is the rainy day. Otherwise, on the bank of the river throughout Odisha, if you can, then again I may talk about your friends. There is the possibility in the pages of history that there is the development. Now coming to the dharma. So dear friends, just a second. These people see that whenever we are talking about the dharma, we have already discussed, we know dharma means धर्म धारयति इति च धर्म जे धर्म को धारण करता को हमें धर्म कहे फॉर एग्जांपल बुद्धिज्म जैनिज्म शैविज्म सिखिज्म शक्तिज्म गणपति cult नाथा cult this Mahima cult Jagannath tradition so Islamism Christianity Yehudi Zoroastrianism so people see that these were not the dharma these were the derogatory interpretation of dharma. Well, what is dharma? Dharma, the way of life. That we must keep in mind, dear friends. Dharma is the way of life. And in this regard, the Egyptians, they had the Egyptians had the knowledge about the dharma, respect to the gods and goddesses, and chant the mantras towards the gods and goddesses. And the most important thing, dear friends, they worship the lords of gods and goddesses. They were the polytheist, not the monotheist. When we are talking about the Islams, talking about the Buddhism, Jainism, Shaivism, even if we may talk about the Christians, I told the Islams. समझते केवल इस्लाम जे चर्च बुद्धिज्म जैनिज्म को छाड़ी के आप जीते हो पृथ्वी धर्म particularly in India as you mean there is no single dharma in India people are fond of the varieties of the dharmas so we call it the Egyptians were the polytheists the Egyptians were the polytheists that we must keep in mind dear friends they were the polytheists and in this context they worship the first god that is called crocodile so they worship crocodile for your information and the crocodile god is known as the Sibek. Sibek was their god crocodile god but now if you talk about we people to worship crocodile crocodile will eat us and now another god is the cat marcher the cat god he is known as the Passat. Then we talk about they also worship the jackal, Srugal, known as the Anubis as the god. And their friends, when we are talking about the Egyptians, they also worship the Ra. Ra is the supreme god, Amun Ra. He is known as the Surya and he is known as the creator. We the Hindus, we people believe that Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the caretaker, and Shiva is the destroyer. But in the Egyptian civilization, for your information, that concept is not there. In the Egypt, they believe that each and every god is equal, and whenever we talk about the Ra, has been considered the creator of the Egypt, but not exactly. And another thing we talk about, they worship the Ra as the sun god, and his son was the Osiris, who has originated just after his return. Whose return? The return of the Egyptians, particularly the pharaohs. And in this regard, dear friends, the wife of Ra, the wife of the sun god, known as the Isis, who is known as the goddess of the earth. Then we may talk about the son of Orisis, known as the Horus. So, who was the god for the common people, the destitutes? So, it was all about the religion. But for your information, for the first time in the history of the world, a new concept that has been emerged, we call it, what is that? That is Pharaoh Chaturtha Amenhotep का नेतृत्वରେ ଫାରୋ ଚତୁର୍ଥ ଆମେନହୋତମଙ୍କ ନେତୃତ୍ୱରେ in Egypt many reforms brought ବହୁତ ଗୁଡେ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳନ ଆସିଲା ସଂସ୍କାର ଆସିଲା and in this regard he introduced the Ekeshwarabad. So dear friends, sometimes you may get the question of who introduced the Ekeshwarabad. That means Ek Brahma Ditya Nasti, or you may talk about one Godhead. So, in this regard, we must keep in mind, dear friends, that we are familiar with the Ekeshwarabad, Ek Brahma Ditya Nasti. And dear friends, whenever we may talk about the Akhandan, and in this regard, dear friends, the Sumerians, sorry, the Egyptians particularly, mm, they were Jaghadi. They are famous for Surya Ghadi. What I think once upon a time is late. So dear friends, ଏଠି ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛେ ଯେ he brought changes. First, introduce monotheism in place of a polytheism. Number one, no worship lots of gods and goddesses, rather to worship one God. No need to two, no need to three, four, five. And another one, he made the ceremonies, he made the puja more simple. Earlier, it was sophisticated. Now he made it, it needs to be more easy, more simple out of difficulties. And when we may talk about it is all about the gods and goddesses. And we may talk about the religious beliefs. I mean, who brought the change. Sacrifice abolished. Then he told he offered the fruits, not for the two times of the meal, two times of the food, that we must keep in mind, dear friends. And in this regard, we came to know that it is all about the Missourians' uh, uh, religious advancement. Now we may talk about the philosophy. For your information, the Egyptians, the Missourians, they had the knowledge, they had the convention towards the philosophy. And in this regard, we may talk about Memsis, the Pradeshika Sasanakarta, and we may talk about uh, Tahotap Kaparag Marsha, the guidance of the Tahotap. It is a book. ତୁମେ ମୋ ପାଖକୁ ଲେଖା ପଠେଇ ପାରିବ, you can send me the articles of yours. So ତାହା ଦେବ ପରାମର୍ଶ ଦେଉଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ସବୁଠୁ ବଡ଼ କଥା ଯେ Confucius, Socrates, you may talk about Buddha. So before them, before the Buddha, before the Socrates, you may talk before the Confucius. Confucius, the matter of the latest during the time of the French Revolution, of Buddha, Socrates. So, in this regard, dear friends, in the field of darshan, they were quite excellent. Now, coming to dear friends, the Dak Seva. So, for your information, the Missourians first in the world who introduced the postal system. आज हमारा postal system आज नहीं, अच्छी postal system.
Yes, sir.
There is no postal system.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
क्यों? हाँ, for your information, the postal system we are using, the postal system replaced by Achi as this is the organization of the government. But we people maximum use the WhatsApp, mail, everything we are transacted through the technologies. And Dakshiba, when we talk about your friends, the Egyptians have been considered as the father of modern Dakshiba. So, if we talk about the Egyptians, for your information, dear friends,
Sir?
they were the father of the, yes,
Sir?
pastoral
हाँ
ଭିତରେ କିଛି different ଅଛି pastoral Christian ଭିତରେ କିଛି different ଅଛି କି sir?
which one रचना
Pastoral and Christian ଭିତରେ କିଛି different
हाँ
ଅଛି କି sir?
हाँ I ଯେତେବେଳେ whenever we are talking about the father and we may talk about the Christian, so they are associated with the Christians. So they were propagating the Christians. They are propagating the Christianity, the philosophy of the Christians, Christianity. So, but whenever we talk about original Christianity, the religion, others they are the propagator. They spread over it. And in this regard, we are talking about the Egyptians were the father of the postal system. How to know? For your information, in one papyrus, it is mentioned that Patrabhaka hatere mopaku lekhi. Exact it is mentioned. From the papyrus, we came to know that. Patrabhaka hatere mopaku lekhi means someone has written, someone has sent some message through a messenger. If very simple to talk, dear friends, if you go back to 30 years, 40 years back, 50, 70 years back, when there is no mobile phone, when there was no technologies, what was the means of the communication? The means of the communication was handwritten during the time of Mahatma Gandhi, during the time of Raman Devi, for your information. During that time, they were sending the message not before, after the Delahusi's postal system. Yes, the Indians started to send the letter, but prior to it, the Indians they were sending the letter through that we must keep in mind, dear friends. They were sending the message through a messenger. ଦୂତ ହାତରେ ପଠାଉଥିଲେ, that we must keep in mind, and it speaks that the postal system was prevalent. Now coming to history, historiography, history of the historical writings known as the historiography, dear friends, and the Egyptians, that we must keep in mind, dear friends. Jadi kichi WhatsApp group hey, okay, dear friends, I'm talking about it. The Missourians or the Egyptians, they had the knowledge about the historiography, how to talk about it, the Rosetta Stone. So the Rosetta Stone is one of the major source of historical writings that we must keep in mind, dear friend. And if I may talk of the Campbellian, who was the uh, paleographer who belongs to the France, and he deciphered the Rosetta Stone. By deciphering the Rosetta Stone, he could write lots of things about the Egyptian civilization. And it is the beginning of the historiography. It is the beginning of the application of the sources to reconstruct the historical facts. And we may talk about another aspects, that is called the agriculture, dear friends. I'm talking about and the irrigation. Yes, the Egyptians were prosperous. The farmers, the slaves, they were prosperous, and even if they were excelled, the Egyptians were excelled, expert in the field of the agriculture, or to produce the agricultural production in the huge amount. And the people say that generally they use the hoe, ଲଙ୍ଗଳ ବ୍ୟବହାର କରୁଥିଲେ, and the purpose was that we must keep in mind, dear friends. The purpose was the purpose was to plow the land. The purpose was to plow the land, and for this purpose, they were collecting. When to talk about the agriculture, it was more favorable. They were getting the sufficient water. They were getting the fertile land because their settlement was on the bank of the Nile. And the people see that when to talk about. they had the knowledge about to carry out the water through the small canals, and generally they were producing the wheat, they were producing the peach, they were producing the cucumbers, they were producing the garlic, that kind of the crops, the agricultural production made by the Egyptians. And even if we want to talk about in the summer seasons, they had produced the watermelon, they had produced the dates and the lemon too. I'm going to talk about the Novanj, the maritime trade and relations. So, dear friends, for your information, the Egyptians had the knowledge regarding the maritime trade. Maritime trade means they had the relation with the overseas. By the application of the oceans, they had the trade relationship with the Parasian. You might talk about the Zanzibar. They had the knowledge, the relations with the Crete, they had the relation with the Phoenicia, and even if people say that they use the Red Ocean, Red Sea, and the Suez Canal were the means for carry out the trade and commerce. And even with your friends, the import export knowledge they had. And now going to talk about the last but not the least, the way of administration, dear friends. Very simple to talk the pharaohs. The administration of the Egyptians was monitored by the pharaohs, and they were quite capable to rule to administer the people of the Egypt. Number one, and number two, dear friends, their mode of administration was decentralized, not centralized. And very simple to talk. The common people, they also respected to the pharaohs, particularly, uh, and also respected by the common people. So, from the above discussion, we came to know that the Egypt has been treated as the state of the pyramid, and Egypt has been considered as one of the major civilization, and it belongs to the Bronze Age. Therefore, even today, after 5,000 years back, now we are studying, we are echoed, we are remembering the legacies. There's something happened to your friends. Okay, you are taught by me, and if you are well convinced, if you have you have the better knowledge, then 100% sure, if people must remember me, and my name must echoed in the annals of years. Now coming to dear friends, the another chapter, the next unit deals with that is called the Harappan civilization. So dear friends, when to talk about the Harappan civilization, it's very easy. Sometimes the historians they have been pointed out that Harappan civilization was flourished on the bank of river Indus. Therefore, we call it the Indus Valley civilization. But for your information, in 2025, many researches have been made. So, Harappan civilization is not only the first city of the Eastern India, as well as in the what we may talk about Southeast countries, or we may talk about the eastern border of India, each of Jaga in the central provinces. So we came to know that the civilization was flourished. And now, dear friends, when we're talking of the Harappan civilization, it was not confined on the bank of the rivers Indus, so that we call it the Indus civilization. It was flourished on the bank of the Ghagra. It has flourished on the bank of the Saraswati. It has flourished on the bank of the Jamuna. It has flourished on the bank of the different bank. The Harappan civilization flourished. Okay, so now coming to therefore, Harappan civilization is one of the important civilization that we must keep in mind. And even today, the civilization is echoed in our annals of mankind because of their legacies. Now, coming to the friend, the Indus Valley civilization, our blueprint like just note down the blueprint. First of all, the introduction. Second one, the sources. Third one is the features of the Harappan culture. So, dear friends, we want to talk the Harappan civilization. due to Dharam Sahani and Ati Banerjee in 2000, in 1920-21, 1922, the two major cities, the Harappa and the Mohenjo-daro, was discovered by Dharam Sahani and Ati Banerjee, and later, even today, the researches are going on. The researches are going on by the archaeologists, by the anthropologists, by the historians. Their responsibilities, their job is to trace out the new discovered Harpan sites, new discovered the Harpan articles, new discovered. So day by day, the different archaeological remains have been thrown off and trace out the culture of the Harappa. So what we may talk of the Harpan culture, we see that it has flourished on the bank of the river. Whenever we may talk about the Harappa in the Punjab district of the Larkana Pradesh, Punjab region of the Larkana district, and the Mohenjo-daro, the Montgomery region. So both the Harappa and the Mohenjo-daro, these are two important sites exactly right now in Pakistan. And later, many sites have come up, many sites have been excavated by the archaeologists. Like you may talk about the Surkotada, you may talk about the Kalibanga, you may talk about the Dholabir, you may talk about the Kadiji, talk about the Lothal, and we may talk about the Surkotada, we may talk about the Rakhigadi. So, lots of sites have been come up now. And if we may talk about the civilization was flourished, it is known as the first modern civilization also. Prathama Adhunika Sabhyata, the first modern civilization. And in this regard, we are talking about it, the directions, the geography of the Harappan civilization. Whenever we may talk about for your information, dear friend, whenever we are talking about the geography of Harappan civilization. It was a vast civilization, dear friends. The Harappan civilization, or the geography says that the Harappan civilization was very vast by nature. It was not confined to the river Indus only. It was also flourished on the bank of the river Ghagra. It was also flourished on the bank of the river Ghagra and the bank of the river Satluj. And whenever we talk about the geography, for your information, dear friends, the core areas, if we talk the core area of the civilization, it was the Indus Valley civilization as well as its tributaries. We are talking about the tributaries and the distributaries. Distributaries means the streamlets are originated from the main course of the temple. And the distributary means we may talk about from the main temple, it has been passes through another course. And whenever we talk about it, dear friends, regarding the hydrography or the water resources, so we know it from the uh, Harappan, we know it from the literature. বিভিন্ন literature ଆମେ ତାକୁ ସବୁ ଜାଣିବାକୁ ପାଇଥାଉ. And whenever we may talk about its geographical location, I told particularly its east. Whenever we may talk about it, dear friends, whenever we are talking about the location, particularly location of Indus Valley civilization. Location of the Indus Valley civilization. It's east, west, north, and the south. That we must keep in mind, dear friends. It's west, north, uh, south. Okay. So whenever we may talk about its location, particularly in the east, we could in the north we could have been able to notice that is called the Mandaj of the Pakistan. You may talk, that is in the Kashmir. And similarly, you may talk about it's the East as you means. We are talking about it, dear friends. Uh, Afghanistan, most probably. Just a second, we may talk about. Just a second.
Sir, near about to Baluchistan.
Gigi, I'm talking to east of, yeah, east there. Just a second. Exactly, we may talk about it. As far as one thing is sometimes no jumble, sometimes it is happen. So whenever we may talk about the east of the Indus Valley civilization, we are talking about the Indo-Gangetic plain, as you means, and where the land was more fertile and it helped to the people uh, for their servitudes. And when we are talking about the Ghagra, particularly Ghagra Saraswati areas also, we are noticed the flourish of Indus Valley civilization. And it is the fact, dear friends, whenever we may talk about the northwestern India, generally, okay, like we may talk of the Gujarat, we may talk about the Rajasthan also, we could have been able to notice. And if we may talk about exactly the Harappan civilization, it was quite the flourishing civilization, the first modern civilization in India, as you know. I have already told the eastern part of Afghanistan, I told. And generally, it was not confined to Indus River. Through the researches, through the archaeological excavations, we came to know that it is also in the Gujarat when to talk the Luthal is made. It is on the in the Rajasthan as far as the Kalibangan is made. And if we may talk about the Dholavira, and if we may talk about the bank of the Ghagra, Hakra, on that bank also, we notice the Harappan civilization. So ultimately, we came to know that the Harappan civilization was not confined to a particular place, like the Indus, it was beyond. And now, whenever we are talking about its features concerned, and for your information, dear friends, Harappan civilization is more prosperous for your information because of their social life. So when to talk the social life, the girls are many girls have been here. Their social life was more healthy. Their social life was more comfortable. The social life was more advanced. How to talk about it? The girls, the women, they were wearing the clothes. It is made of the cotton. So cotton was produced. It was the part of the social life. And whenever we talk of the male and the female, they both are so fond of the keeping beard. They were also keeping the long hair. And for making their head, the girls and the women, for making their head more beautiful, for your information, they were putting the hairpins because the Harappan civilization belongs to the Bronze Age. The people, the Harappans, had no knowledge about the iron. And whenever we talk about it, dear friends, their food habits. We are discussing about the social life of the Harappans. So from the social point of view, we see the clothes. They use both the male and female use the cotton. They were fond of the jewelries. And what kind of the jewelry they used? They used the jewelry like the beads. They used the jewelry like the bangles. They used the jewelry like the anklets. And whenever we talk about the necklace too, and from that point of view, from the excavations, we came to know that there was the bead making factory. It speaks about the Harpan social life. And the something happened there, friends. Their food habits. The Harappans were both the vegetarian and the non-vegetarians. That you must keep in mind. And whenever we talk about the non-veg, it is excavated from the different archaeological sites that the fish hook Boinsikanta, the fish hook was there. It speaks that the Harappans were catching the fish. ସେମାନେ ମାଛ ଧରୁଥିଲେ from the river, from the streamlets. And another aspect, dear friends, they use the kajal when to beautify themselves. And the male members also keeping the beard, like me, ମୁଁ ଯେମିତି ଦାଢି ରଖିଛି, they were also keeping the beard. And for your information, they had the technology, they had the knowledge to save the beard, because from the archaeological excavation of the Harappan sites, we find out the beard man, ଦାଢି ଥିବା ମଣିଷ excavate କରାଯାଇଛି. And another aspect, dear friends, I told the food, I told the clothes, I told yes. Another, when to talk about the merrymaking at the part of the social life is concerned of the Harappans. Yes. The women were fond of the singing. The women, the male, both the male and female, they were fond of the games, indoor games. Like you may talk about the chopat, you may talk about the dice, posakila. They had the knowledge. Also, they were making the singing, dancing, music, they were fond of the music. The purpose was to relax the pains, the griefs, pains, and another aspects of the social life that we may talk about it, dear friends. Yes, houses, clothes, houses. And generally, we notice the Harappan civilization had three phases. One is early Harappan phase. Second one, we may talk about the matured Harappan phase. And the third one, that is called the decline phase. So in the early Harappan phase, we notice whenever we are talking about the house making, there are the different kinds of the people. The ruling class was there. They were living in the towns, big towns like the Harappans and the Mohenjo-daros. Their house was generally in the upland, and the common people, they settled at the lower land of the lower part of the Harappan sites. Like in talk about where the ruling class were living, that is called the upland, and in the lower land the common people were living. They were using the bricks, and the bricks size was 1 is to 2 is to 3. It was in the early urban sites, early urban phase. And generally, the house was made up with the uh, mud bricks, kancha ita. Some extent, they're using the sun-born bricks. ଯାହାକୁ କହୁଛେ ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ କିରଣରେ ଶୁଖିଥିବା ଇଟା, the dried bricks. So now question comes, dear friends, how they were keeping it, because of there were the possibilities of the raining, and if the rain is made easily, the bricks made with the mud easily being collapsed, easily being melted out. But for your information, that you must keep in mind, why we are talking about the husbands were advanced, their social life speaks, because they use a material we call the gypsum. So gypsum they used in between the bricks so that the brick was not easily melted out. And if people say that, the people also use the brick houses, and in the home they had the rest house, they had the kitchen room, they had the big veranda, and very simple to talk, dear friends. As far as the floor is concerned, in each and every house in front there was the veranda, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ the ଅଗଣା ବୋଲି ଆମେ କହୁଛେ, and the floor was made with the clean burnt bricks, completely ପୋଡ଼ା ଇଟାରେ ତିଆରି, ପୋଡ଼ା ଇଟାକୁ ସେମାନେ ବ୍ୟବହାର କରୁଥିଲେ on the floor. So it was all about the social life of the Harappans. And whenever we talk about the Harappan civilization, that is the economic life. So when we may talk of the economic life of the Harappans, dear friends, we must keep in mind their main source of income was agriculture, because the civilization was settled on the bank of the river. In one hand, they were getting the fertile soil, other hand, they were getting the sufficient water, and the third one, the land with the plain. And ultimately, they produced the huge amount of the agricultural production in name of the peach, name of the drumstick, name of the barley, name of the maize, name of the wheat. And wheat was the staple food. So it was even if the Harappans had the knowledge about the irrigation. Therefore, they were digging the water reservoir, and that water reservoir is known as the Gobarban. So it speaks how Harpans were advanced in their lifestyle in the field of the economy. Two, it was the agriculture. And for your information, dear friends, to enhance agriculture, the Harappans also domesticated the animals. They domesticated the cows, they domesticated the buffaloes, they domesticated the sheep, domesticated the goat, hen, even if for your information, horse also, the dog, they were domesticated. Earlier, if you may talk about when I was the students of history, I was reading like you people in the masters, there was the research that Harappans, we are not familiar with the horse. But for your information, in recent years in Afghanistan, there was the archaeological excavation, or the excavation was conducted by the Department of Archaeology, found the bones of the horse, and that bone is correspondent to the Harpantiles, Harpan civilizations. So, dear friends, we are talking about the early phase of the Harpan, uh, what we talk about, early phase of the Harpan civilization. So, they domesticated the animals. Why? For three purposes: to enhance the economy in one hand, number two, for selling the animals to enhance the economy. Number two. Number three, for the plowing purposes. Number four, to enhance the fertility, because due to the domestication of the animals, the Harpan pigeons, the Harappans, they could collect the grain manures, they collect the cow dungs, they collect the urine of the animals, and they were using in the field. Ultimately, it was a kind of the boost to the agricultural production. And for your information, dear friends, the staple food, they produced a huge amount of the agricultural production. And that agricultural production, they stored. The time there was no cold store. What today we have, but they had the granary, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ଶସ୍ୟାଗାର, and it is the fact, dear friends, that at Harappa, the granary have been excavated, and it speaks that the Harappans had the knowledge about the future, and to mitigate the crisis in the future, to mitigate the natural devastation. Suppose in the future there was no raining, or the drought is made, the famine is made. So at that critical juncture, to mitigate their stomachs, they were storing the foods. We call it the granaries. And it is the fact, dear friends. From the granary, also, we found a place that is a kind of the pendal we may talk about, a round place. It was prepared with the support of the clean burnt bricks, ପୋଡ଼ା ଇଟାରେ ତାକୁ ଗୋଲାକୃତି ଗୋଟେ ଖଳା କରାଯାଇଥିଲା, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ in the Odisha, or today in the village areas we are using the term khala. And in that khala, the Harappans, they could produce or they harvest the agricultural production. Now, another question comes to friends at the part of the economy. We see the trade and commerce. So, from the Mesopotamian literature, It is known that the Sumerians had a relationship with Harappa and a place called the Meluha, that is correspondent now the Punjab region of the Pakistan. And a Meluharu ଯାଉଥିଲେ to the Mesopotamia, to the Sumer. So there was the trade relationship between the Sumerian civilization and the Harappan civilization. And another aspect, if you may talk about the difference, at the Gujarati place called the Lothal, there was the port, man-made port, Manish Tiyari, Bandar Thila. So it speaks that the Harappans also had the brisk relationship with the other neighboring countries, and they passing through the Lothal. And another aspect when to talk about your friends, Lothal was famous for the rice husk. That means the Arabians produced the rice. It speaks that the paddy was there. And now talking about it, dear friends, I told the trade and commerce, both the internal and the external trade was there. They imported the gold, lapis lazuli. Then we may talk about, the precious stones, the metals, and they were sending the wheat, the vegetables, the cottons. It was all about the krishi. And now we are talking about the another aspects that is called the town planning. So, dear friends, when to talk of the town planning of Harappa, it itself speaks. Just a second, dear friends. Just a second. Take 2-3 minutes just to have a. So, dear friends, again, welcome to our class. We came to know that, for your information, that is called the Harappan or the Harappan civilization was one of the most prosperous advanced civilization as far as the Bharatiya civilization is concerned. Rachana, want to say? Yes. So I'm talking about
Yes,
the
sir.
another feature that is called the town planning. And whenever we talk about the town planning, we must keep in mind, dear friends, the Harappan civilization or the Harappan towns, like the Harappa, the Mohenjo-daro. You may talk about the Lothal, you may talk about the Kalibanga, you may talk about the Kardiji, you may talk about the Rupar, you may talk about the Dolavira. So, any Harappan sites, Rakhigadi, Mehergarh, any Harappan sites, you may talk about it. It was well settled, well planned. The houses were in the row, and each and every house there was the small canal, the small street that may talk about it, and it was connected to the main drain. So the road was straight, it crossed in the 90-degree angle. The roads were straight from east to west and north to south, and they produced the angle 90-degree angle, and at the cross point there was the lighthouse. What today we may talk about the climate, the what to say, the high-max light we may talk about at the every joint portions today we notice in all over the world. But for your information, in the world for the first time the Harappans used the light post, the light system at the what to say, the joint of the road. And the road, when to talk about the longevity of the road, they use the clean burnt bricks. ସେମାନେ ପୁରା completely ପୋଡ଼ା ଇଟାକୁ ବ୍ୟବହାର କରୁଥିଲେ. And I am talking about the road, both the side of the road, there was running the grand drain, and the main drain was collecting the wastewaters of the house, and that main drain contains the wastewater, and it was released at the end of the towns, and there the water was stored. So they had the knowledge about the recycling of the water, and the drain was also, it was a very deep drain, and what today we talk the 6 feet 5 feet drain the government is making, and the drain was covered by the slabs. So it speaks that the drains were covered by the slabs. It speaks how the Harappans were more familiar with health and hygienic. କେତେ ସ୍ୱାସ୍ଥ୍ୟ ପ୍ରତି ସେମାନେ ସଚେତନ ଥିଲେ ସେମାନେ. But today we are talking about it, dear friends. The drain is open. People were floating. People were killing, what to say, missing. And we people are less conscious about the health and sanitation in just to make compare to the Harappan civilization. So, as per the town planning is concerned, I told the road. Number two, we discussed about the drainage system. And number three, dear friends, that is the town planning. We call it the granaries as the part of the town planning. The granary was there, and similarly, we are talking about the great bath. So the great bath is corresponding to present the swimming pool concept. And from the Mohenjo-daro, after the excavation of the Mohenjo-daro, the great bath was deciphered. The great bath came to the limelight. And the great bath was just like it entered into the great bath. There was the steps. Sometimes later on, during the time of the Buddhism, in at the Lalitagiri, Ratnagiri, Udayagiri, during the time of the Jainas, if you may talk about at Khandagiri, Udayagiri. So, for your information, there is the stepping well. Upon the suppose if people might have been coming to the Udayagiri, at Udayagiri there is a stepping well. That means you can reach at the water through the step. So the great bath was like this. The great bath, when to talk about, it was like the stepping well structure One can reach at the water through the steps, and surrounding the great bath, there was the balcony. So the people, they use the great bath for two purposes. Purpose number one, that is called the religious purposes. Purpose number two, for the swimming purposes. Purpose number three, for the competition. And the people see that nearby, when we may talk the great bath, surrounding the great bath, there was the well, and the wells we are supplying the water to the great bath, and there was the system to release the wastewater. Very simple to talk, dear friends. After using the water became dirty, and as a result, for your information, the dirty water, the wastewater were released. There was the system, and nearby the great bath, surrounding the great bath, there was the in the four corners of the great bath, there was the room, and the room was meant for changing the clothes. ଆମର clothes କୁ change କରିବା ପାଇଁ ମାନେ ଘର ଥିଲା. What today exactly we are using the washroom. Washroom is covered, and we people are using for the bathing purposes as well as the dressing, the changing the dress. Just imagine, dear friends. And the wells, they were supplying the water. Wastewater was released through the canal, and that was reaching at the membrane. It is the great baths, as you people see that. And it speaks about their progress. It speaks about their development. And another aspect, dear friends, when we are talking about the great bath, when the great bath, the Harappans from as per the uh, drainage system I told, road I told, ha. If people see there was the grid system. The grid system means I told, that means the Harappans proved there how they were what is excel in the field of engineering. From the great bath we notice, from the drainage system we know the great granaries also. And whenever we talk about the another aspects, that is called the, yes, if people see, religious beliefs. So the Harappans were the fond of the religions. How to believe that? From the Harappan seals, we came to know that they were fond of the Pasupati Shiva. They worship Shiva. Pasupati means the person who is surrounding, who is the master over the animals. So from the Harappan seal, it is noticed that Shiva at the center and many animals are surrounding him. So that he is known as the Pasupati. And some seals contains the mother goddess. That means the Shaktism was there. It is part of the Harappan religion, Shaivism, and the mother goddess worship was in practice during the time of the Harappa, or the Harappans were fond of it. Besides, dear friends, they worship Agni, they worship the sacred water, they worship animism, prakrutika puja କରୁଥିଲେ. They worship sun. They worship the trees like the tulsi. They worship the trees like the bell, like the neem. And they had also the belief that the cremation, for your information, dear friends, no cremation, burial system was there. Harpan's money, burial system. After the death, they buried the dead body. And when to talk about the prayer as means, or the religious faith and the beliefs, for your information, dear friends, nearby the great bath, there was the hall, and that hall was meant for worship. That you must keep in mind, dear friend. So, from the religious point of view, we came to know that we are the worshipper of the nature, and we call them the, for your information, we call, this is called the Harpan's religious beliefs and religious faith. And difference, when to talk with the mature phase of the Harappan civilization, we came to know that the Harappans could able to know the use of the stone, and the house was multi-storied. So that is the development of the Harappan civilization in the transformation from the early phase to the mature phase. In the mature phase, the houses became multi-storied. Earlier, in the early phase, it was the one-storied. The brick was 1:2:3, but in the mature phase, the brick as well as the stone they use, it was 1:2:4, and they use the stone building also. And in the mature phase, they could able to produce the paddy. So from that point of view, in the mature phase, Harappan lifestyle, the lifestyle of the Harappa in the mature phase was quite advanced. It is in the field of the society, in the field of the religion, in the field of the uh, science and technology, in the field of agriculture. That we call it the mature phase. And the decline phase, there are many theories have been developed, many theories. Like I may talk about, from the many regions, the Harappan civilization was collapsed. One reason is the tectonic movement. Due to the tectonic movement, the rivers changed their course, and as a result, the the Harappan sites, were collapsed in one hand. Other hand, you may talk about the foreign invasion. Like you may talk the Aryans, they are come from the Asia Minor, and from that point of view, they attack on the what to say the Harappans. The second theory. The third theory that we may talk about the Harappan civilization was collapsed because the epidemics, because of the epidemics, like called the plague. Plague was a kind of the disease, and it was spread over in the Harappan settlement. And in contact of that, the people they were declined, they were passed away, and the civilization declined. So, manifold regions are responsible for the decline of the Harappan civilization, or we may talk the flood was also the another cause. It cannot be relegated or the rejected. Flood was also another cause. So it is all about the compendiums of the Harappan civilization. So another civilization we are talking about, dear friends, the Chin civilization. Whenever we talk about the Chin civilization, it was flourished on the bank of Hoyangho and the Yangtze. So these were the two rivers, Sikiang, Yangtze, and Hoyangho, the rivers. And therefore, people see that when to talk about the geography helped a lot to the people of the China that to flourish independently without any disturbances. The geography of the China itself speaks. How to talk about? When to talk about its west of the China, we notice there was the Pacific Ocean. If we talk about its west, we notice there is the Tibetan plateaus. We may talk about it, and in the north, we may talk about the desert, like may talk about the Shinsan, the mountains, and in the south, for your information, in the south of China or the Chinese civilization, we notice there is the Great Himalaya, or we may talk about the dense forest of the Brahmadesh. So, whenever we talk about the physical features of the Chinese civilization, it helped to protect China from the different directions and without any disturbances, without any no influence of the outsiders. The Chinese could independently think without any disturbances, getting the freedom, independence, they could produce, they could advance in the different fields like the medical science, like agriculture, like the political history, social history, religious history, history of the science and the technology. And now, dear friends, we are talking about the Chinese civilizations, the political history of the Chinese civilization. So, when to talk about the Chinese history, dear friends, so there is the uh, scanty sources, scanty literature to think of the Chinese civilization. And why I'm talking about it, it is in obscurity. The Chinese civilization was in obscurity because less source materials available. And it may talk about the legends or it may talk about the mythologies, dear friends. By 17th century BCE, 1700 ଖ୍ରୀଷ୍ଟପୂର୍ବ 1700 ବେଳକୁ in China, a royal dynasty was ruled over that is called the Shang dynasty. The Shang dynasty ruled over. And for your information, dear friends, after that, the Chu dynasty, then we may talk about the uh, Qin dynasty. So many dynasties came or ruled over in ancient China. And whenever we talk of the Qin dynasty, the most powerful ruler of the Qin dynasty, he was Shi Huangdi. So Shi Huangdi was the powerful, dedicated, the man with the farsightedness, and he became the ruler. The credit goes to him, dear friends. That is the Great Wall of China. जो बृहत सुदीर्घ चाइनार जो वाल आम कहे पृथ्वी सब लंबा चाइना लंबा कांथ आम कहे सुदीर्घ प्राचीर it is the credit of the Shi Huangdi who belongs to the Qin dynasty. And the purpose was that great wall was constructed now. It is formed the seven wonders of the world. सप्ताश्चर्य मध्य गोटिए. The purpose was to protect the Chinese from the external attack. Now I'm going to talk about the difference. Shi Huangdi, Artha Kon. What do you mean by the Shi Huangdi? The meaning of Shi Huangdi is the first Samrat, the first ruler that we must keep in mind, dear friends. And after that, in China, another dynasties like the Han dynasty, the Tang dynasty, the Sung dynasty, lots of dynasties flourished in China. And different the historians like the Herodotus and the other historians, they have been pointed out that what they have been pointed out that China, Huang Ho, is the sorrow of the China. It is a sorrow because every year in the even today, this year is coming. Every year in the river Huangho, there is the flood. And due to the flood, the China, even today, the Chinese, the people of the China or the Chinese are suffered. So the practice is not a today, it is a journey since 1700 BCE to 2025. Every year, there is the flood and it affects, it loses the lives and the property of the China. Now, dear friends, we are talking about the contributions of the China. China was not backward like the other civilizations and their legacies. ଆମେ ଏଠି ଦେଖିବା the first one that is called the writing style, the method of the writing, the process of the writing. So, dear friends, when to talk of the writing, it was, it is, it would be. How to talk about it? Now, generally, we share our feelings, our sorrows, our happiness, and therefore the Chinese established a special kind of the uh, picture. It was a small in size, and through that picture, they published, they established the shares, their communication. It is known as Chabbi Sanketa, symbol of the picture. And later they use in place of the picture, chavi, they placed certain symbols. We call it, they use that symbols keeping in view of the transmission communication. We call it the bhab symbol, communicative symbols. And later on, they use the phonetics, dhoni symbol. And for your information, dear friends, initially the Chinese used 55,000 symbols, and out of it, Ajibi Jadi Jiba in 2025, suppose if people are coming to China, near about 4,000 sankets, 4,000 symbols used by the people of China. Now coming to the another part, that is called the kalam and tuli, pen, and we may talk about the tuli. Tuli means what today then are generally the artists of India, the artists of the world right now, they are drawing some painting, drawing some pictures with the support of the tuli brass we may talk about. So for your information, initially the Chinese they use the bamboo pen, bouncer column ଲେଖୁଥିଲେ ସେମାନେ, and uh, later they also use the skin, and in the skin they use the brush, and that brush they prepared it for your information. Just they were making that ink, and they were putting that brush, and they were writing. Now we are talking about, dear friends, making of the ink. How could the Chinese prepare it? How could the Chinese prepare the ink? ସେମାନେ ସ୍ୟାହି କାଳି କେମିତି ପ୍ରସ୍ତୁତ କରୁଥିଲେ ନା by collecting the particles, the carbon particles from the pottery, and they are putting the water and the kind of a gum they put, and with the support of it they were preparing the ink. And for your information, in that ink, yes, Shobhi,
Sir, is there any similarities between making of ink in Egyptian civilization and Chinese civilization, sir?
yes, yes. Whenever we talk about the civilizations, dear friend, it was the procedures. But when to talk about the Egyptians, they were using the reed pen, REED, reed pen. Reed means a kind of a grass. But whenever we are talking about the Chinese people, the Chinese, the people of the China, they use the bamboo, they use the brass in place of the reed, but the preparation of the ink was same as the Egyptians. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Ekdam clear?
Yes, sir.
Good. Very good. Very good. So now, dear friends, I'm talking about what they use the bamboos as well as the silk clothes. On the silk clothes, they were also writing through the support of the brush, and that brush, when we talk about it, it was made of the we may talk about what the camel's furs. Now I'm going to talk about difference the paper later and what the paper today we are using. JK Bond, we may talk about JK copier. So what the present paper we are using everybody in all over the world, it is the legacy, the contributions of the China. So the Adhunik paper, the modern paper is discovered by the Chinese. How they were making it, for your information, it was difficult to store the first of all they were using on the bamboos. Then we may talk about on the wooden plate. So it was difficult, even the silk clothes, it was difficult. And to store it for a long period of time, therefore, the Chinese developed the modern paper. And when to talk the modern paper, the ingredients were the bark of the tree. You may talk about the grass called the sabai grass. Then you may talk about the clothes, which are the torn clothes. What they are doing it for your information, the means, the way of the preparation of the paper. So having these ingredients, they were just making it a paste, gunda like this, grinding they are doing it. Then they are putting the water and I might talk about the gums. And after that, they were just boiled it. Okay. And after that, they were dying in the under the sun. And ultimately, it was just in about 105 Christopher, near about ଆଜି ଯଦି ଆମେ କହିବା 2100 years back, the Chinese could able to produce the modern paper. Now we may talk about the literature due to the development of the or the invention of the paper. The Chinese could develop the literature, and in this regard, dear friends, the literature among the literature, one is the poems of the old farmer. Number one, the poems of the old farmer. Number one. Number two, that you must keep in mind, dear friends, the poem of the beautiful sky. Or you may talk about the I am talking about what? Yes, anyone is? Sasmita, want to see? Then we are talking about. Then we are talking about, dear friends, Pancha Mahakavya. So Lipo was one of the most prominent the poet who had written 30 epics, 30 epics, and Tufu was the most romantic poet of the Chinese civilization, and he is also known as the kids of China. That we must keep in mind for your information, dear friends. When we are talking about when we are talking about the Tufu, he is the kids of the China because his writings are based on the romanticism. Then you may talk about your friends, uh, Sumachin, the another one who has been considered as the great historian for the first time who started to write the history of the China. So in this way, dear friends, we came to know that for your information. In this way, we came to know that the Chinese they were quite advanced. The Chinese were quite advanced in the field of literature. Now, talking about the another aspects for your information, that is to the education. Yes, dear friends, education is the backbone of the nation's prosperity. So the Chinese they were progress in the realm of education, and from that point of view, we may talk about in the villages there was the schools. If we may talk about in the district, there was the colleges. In the university, in the capital, there were the universities. What today we have. When to talk about the Bhubaneswar in the cities, in the capitals, we notice the universities only. And the universities are not happen today in the villages. In the villages happen schools, primary schools, then the 10th higher education schools. We may talk about the Ucha Vidyalaya. And in this regard, dear friends, generally what subject was given, what subject was studied, it was the literature, the warfares, then we may talk about how to ride the chariot, then we may talk about the mathematics. These were the subjects. These subjects were taught in the schools, colleges, and the universities of the China. Now, talking about dear friends, another aspects, the teachers, they emphasized on the character building. ଆଜି ଆମେ ସମସ୍ତେ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ଥାଉ ଥିଲେ ଯେତେ ଗୁଣ ହଜାର ଚରିତ୍ର ନଥିଲେ ସବୁ ଅସାର. So therefore in English, if money is lost, something is lost. If character is lost, everything is lost. So from that point of view, dear friends, the people of China or in the Chinese civilization, the education was given for your information for the character building, number one, and number two, how to lead a pious life. କେତେ ଶୁଦ୍ଧ ପୂତ ଜୀବନ ଯାପନ କରିବା ସଚ୍ଚୋଟତା ଜୀବନ ଯାପନ କରିବା it was given and through the education they built up the future of the nation. And very simple to talk about the people of China, they were more fond of how to lead the peaceful life, how to lead the simple life, how to lead the life with the principles. Now coming to talk about, dear friends, the Vigyan, whenever we may talk about the science. So in the field of science, the Chinese, we are excelled a lot. Mainly, they had the knowledge about the mathematics and the geometry. And it was possible, dear friends, when to talk of the mathematics and the geometry, it was possible because they they formed the ideas, they were collecting the ideas by notice the movement of the moons, the stars, the celestial bodies. Yes, and we may talk about it, dear friends. They had the knowledge about the solar eclipse. They had the knowledge about the lunar eclipse. ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ ଆଜି କହୁଛେ ସୂର୍ଯ୍ୟ ପରାଗ ଚନ୍ଦ୍ର ଗ୍ରହଣ. That knowledge the Chinese had. And besides the difference, so to talk about, they had the knowledge about the music, like you may talk about the mridang, you may talk about the dhol, that you must keep in mind, dear friends. And other part you may talk about the watch, they had the knowledge about the watch. They had the knowledge about the volumes. So it speaks about that the Chinese were quite advanced, quite a progress as far as the human civilization is concerned or the mankind is concerned. Now, going to talk about the medical science. The friends in the field of the medical science, the Chinese also, they were familiar with the different limbs. They were familiar with the different diseases, the cause of the disease, and the healing practices. Generally, the Chinese had the knowledge about the heart, about the liver, the knowledge they had, and the disease like the fever, like the dysentery, like the cholera, like the weakness, like metal the blindness. So that kind of the disease they were familiar with it, and also they had the knowledge how to cure it, how to heal it. And in this regard, they prepare a kind of the powder from the animal's bone, and that powder they use for the different kind of the diseases. And the most important thing is here, it is the noblest contributions of the China, that the anesthesia. As they come in all over the world, in a kind of the major operations is made, in a kind of the major cesarean is made, there is the anesthesia is given. And that anesthesia, we call it the Nischetaga, and it was used by the Chinese people. Now I'm going to talk about, dear friends, that is called the Kala and the Stapatya, art and architecture. So the legacies, the contributions of the China cannot be ignored because they were prosperous in the field of the art and architecture. Very simple to talk from the attack of the Huns, from the attack of the Tartars, they are the foreign invasions. From their attack, when Shi Huangdi built the great wall, we call it the Great Wall of China. Its length was 2,250 miles, and when to talk the wall's length was like this, and the wide it was 20 foot, and the height it was the 22 feet. Just imagine, ଆମେ ଆଜି ଯଦି ଘରର କାନ୍ଥ କରୁଛେ 15 ଇଞ୍ଚିଆ କାନ୍ଥ, but they are making it, it was 2,205 miles, and the wall wide was the 20 feet, and height was the 22 feet. So it was difficult by the foreigners to cross over it. And the difference, every 130 yard, 130 yard ভিতরে there was the 40 feet of the fort, and that fort was a durga was made, the fort was made, and in each and every fort there were the possibilities of the accommodation of the 100 soldiers, and even if it was meant for the arms and the ammunitions. And now dear friends, without any the wages, the people who were sentenced to the jail, they were constructed it. And for your information, dear friends, another greatest contribution that is called the pagoda. So the Chinese also by the second century, but this way, a new era was happened, created also, that may talk about the people made the pagoda, and they engraved, like we talk about the fighting, the Juddha Chalana, the war scenes. We may talk about the Palinkis Potuvar, the processions. Then we may talk the hunting of the animals picture. So this kind of the art and architecture was flourished when to talk about the Chinese civilization is concerned. And another part, we may talk about the glass, we may talk of the pottery, then we may talk of the silk clothes. So, dear friends, whenever we may talk about the Chinese civilizations, the Chinese, they were expertise they had in making the glass. ଆଜି ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ ଆମେ talk the glass cup, glass tray, any glass item we talk about, it is from the China, and they were making it. It is by the second century BCE. So they prepare the different kind of the instruments, the household articles, and also they were fond of the silk clothes, and the silk clothes was unparalleled. It was exported to the Rome. You may talk the Greece, you may talk the Crete, and even today, the Chinese clothes were more attracted, acclaimed in the countries. Now, coming to dear friends, the another aspect that we may talk about the mariner compass, then tea, then the gunpowder. So, why the mariner compass? The mariner compass helped the ships to the to reach at the destiny. It was just like Digavaran Jantra, like this we talk of the mariner compass, the compass of which guides the ships to reach at the destiny without any trouble. So it is the legacies of the Chinese, and as a result, the Magellan Lateran. You may talk with the Columbus, you may talk with the Amerigo Vespucci, you may talk with the Vasco da Gama, and in all over the world, many. What we may talk about? Many navigators, persons, they have been reached at the different distance, and it was the credit goes to the Chinese people, and they also developed the tea. As a result, today in all over the world, tea is common to all the ages. It may be youth, the old, whatever we may talk about it. So, so in this regard, we came to know that they also, it is another legacies of the Chinese that they discovered the tea, and also the gunpowder. That gunpowder we are using now. The First World War is the result of the gunpowder, the Second World War, and now you may talk of the Hamas, you may talk of the Gaza, you may talk of the Ukraine, in all over the world. The application of the gunpowder made the devastation. It is the credit of the China. And dear friends, whenever we talk about the uh, dharma, the Chinese people, they were more fond of the religions. And in the field of religion, we came to know that uh, the Chinese people were more religious bent of thought, and generally they were the worshipper of the nature. Like you may talk the earth, you may talk about the heaven, talk about the sun, the moon, the stars. And the rivers, the mountains, the earth, they worship it. And they worship Prithvi, they worship the earth as the goddess of the sea, Tsec. They worship the food grains, Sasya, as the Chi, and Sancti. Sancti was the main god of the Chinese people, their friends. And most important thing to hear in the ancient China, the people by 6th century BCE, like the other countries in India, in Persia, in China also, there was a great change. There was a great reforms, and that reforms in terms of the great philosophers like Lao Tzu. We may talk about the Confucius. Everybody knows Lao Tzu was born in the Chu state of the Gu district and the place called the Lixiang. In the year 604, he took birth and he promoted a religion called the Taoism. Tao means a path or uh, a road. And in this regard, he has developed the book, the Tao Te Ching. Here he has pointed out that how one could get moksha. Janakam the moksha Bible. Therefore, he is known as the Buddha of Jain. Lao is known as the Buddha of Jain. So his philosophy was uh, the human being should not be run after power, finance. But what today people start? Today we people are run after the money. I'm tonka by pagal. Today people are run for the power. Everybody wants today. Kimte ratarati bada manisha hijwa. That is our motto. But Confucius, the Lao Tzu rejected it. Then he believed that one should live the life with the peace, satta. ସତ କହିବାକୁ କିଆଁ ଡରିବି ସତ କହି ପଛେ ମଲେ ମରିବି ମତେ ଏତିକି ଶିଖା ସାଇଁ ହେ ମୋର ଧନ ଜନ ଲୋଡା ନାହିଁ ହେ ଇଏ କଣ ମଦ ଖାଇକି ଖାଇଛି ନା Confucius Laos has pointed out that then he said not to hate to others rather you love to others ଆମେ ଘୃଣା କରୁଛେ no need to hate to others rather you love extend love as much as possible and always try to spend yourself, your life, your money, your property for the cause of the others. And if people see that, he also advocated the concept of the uh, paropakar, help to others. ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ପରୋପକାର ସେ ସ୍ୱର୍ଗାୟ service to mankind is service to God. Manava seva hi madhav seva. So it was the philosophy of the Lao Tzu. Similarly, Confucius also another great philosopher who has written the Panch Mahakapya like the Itihas Pustak, Kapita Pustak, Parivartana Pustak, Ritira Pustak, and Rutu Pustak. The book of the history, the book on history, book on poetry, book on the change, book on the principles, and book on the seasons. He was the Confucius. And he said, Satcharitra, one should be the man of the character based life. Satcharitra, modesty. Second, good behavior. Then honesty, modesty, simple. One should add on with him. These are the characters. Then he said that another point, the rulers must treat the subject as their son and children and love to others. Samasthang bhal paiba, love to others. So to respect to the forefathers, worship to the forefathers. And if people try, we try to commit the less mistake. That is another aspect, dear friends. We try to commit the less mistake. And pratyek vyakti, everybody should earn the name and the fame by doing the sat karma, the right action, not the asat karma. It is all about, dear friends, the Confucius. So today we discuss the three civilizations. One is the Egyptian civilizations. Then we discuss the bronze, like the Harappan civilization and the Chinese civilization. It is all about our discussion today. If people understood what is today's discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes, sir.
you.
Yes, sir.
100%.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir.
Sir,
Thank
sir,
you,
sir,
sir.
sir, ଗୋଟେ
Thank you,
doubt.
sir.
Sir, ଗୋଟେ
Tell
question
me.
ଥିଲା.
Yeah.
Sir, according to you, which one is the best world history book?
Best book on the world history.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
According to me, if you talk about it, dear friends, the best book regarding the world history, that is the Double Double Witch. Double Double Witch.
WW. Which? Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. My best wishes to you all. Thank you for the kind cooperation so that we could complete 2 hours of our discussion and finish the 3 units. Okay,
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you,
Thank you
sir.
so much, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
welcome,
sir. Thank you.
welcome,
Thank you, sir.
welcome, welcome. Yes, yes, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
WhatsApp ରେ କିଛି ଗ୍ରୁପ ଅଛି କି ଓଡିଶା ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଇଗ୍ନୋର ରେ? ହ୍ୟାଲୋ।
ହଁ ଅଛି 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 ଅଛି
ଅଛି ଅଛି।
କିଏ ଗୋଟେ ସେଟ୍ କରିଦିଅ ଭାଇ ଜଲ୍ଦି।
ଆମେ ଆଡ୍ ହେଇନୁ।
ପହରଦିନ ଯୋଉ ଲିଙ୍କ ଟା କିଏ ଦେଇଥିଲେ ସେ ଲିଙ୍କ ଟା ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଓପେନ ହଉନି, ତ ତାର ଆଉ କିଛି ଅଦର ପ୍ରୋସେସ ଅଛି କି?
ଗୋଟେ ମିନିଟ୍ ଦେଖୁଛି।
ହଁ ପ୍ଲିଜ।
ଭାଇ ଇଗ୍ନୋ ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଗ୍ରୁପ